Hello and welcome to the first live design streaming session of 2021. Thank you so much for joining us. I see that we have some people on chat already. Yeah, Happy New Year. And if you're here, congratulations, we are still alive. I hope that you're doing well and keeping safe wherever you are joining us from. Please let us know where you're joining us from in the chat. I see Kristen. How's it going there? Okay, cool. Let me give you a little bit of context around what we're trying to do here. This is part one of a 4-part series that we are doing throughout the course of January. Basically, we will be talking about getting, the basics of, starting a career in UX design. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, and you'd like to join us for all of the upcoming sessions in the next coming weeks, please do consider subscribing to our channel. That way you get notifications every time that we have the video set up for the next event, and you can jump onto it. This show, or rather streaming sessions, is brought to you by dobetterux.com, which is basically a place where we try and give people valuable education from years of experience and industry experts. We try and reach out to other people and really give you a no BS approach to learning, about your user experience design career, or product design career, if you want to call it that. So let's jump into today's session. So in today's session, we want to really start by, discussing, are you a good fit for getting started in a career in UX design, or rather, is a career in UX design a good fit for you? So we're going to discuss a couple of things along the way, but just right off the bat, the biggest thing that I wanted to get off everybody's chests and what have you is that when we are talking about UX design, or product design rather, you do not need to have, design or creative experience to start, a career in UX design. I think the word designer in UX design usually sort of like puts people off, and usually people who are coming from other fields, not necessarily design-based fields, feel a little bit put off by that. So that is the first biggest thing that I wanted to get off the bat, is that you do not need to be a designer. If you are, let's say you're doing web design or other, sort of like design, what can I say, other design roles, and not necessarily UX, that is also a great thing. You probably fit in the UX UI role pretty much, because you'll be able to learn something new and sort of like cross skill out of using the UX UI route. But today I'm going to be taking a deep dive on the traits, or rather, some of the things that you're expected to do as a UX designer. So what is a UX designer? Maybe that is the biggest question that we want to answer today. And we want to answer it by bringing up 3 different things. I think these are the 3 biggest traits that every UX designer should have. And I think the first biggest one is problem solving. You need to be a curious problem solver. The second one is great communication. And the third one is somebody who is analytical and pays attention to detail. Now, let me break them down a little bit. So UX design is all about solving problems. Like I said, the designer word, or design word in UX design usually misleads people and think that this is something to do with always the look and feel. There is a huge component that UX design fits back into the look and feel, but UX design seeks to solve problems for users. The biggest thing that we're trying to do as UX designers on an everyday basis is really understand what our user needs are based on business alignment, and how do we solve those users' needs using technology and software. Usually in the UX design field, as we have known it today, it has evolved into a mainly digital field. So when we're talking about product design or UX design, it has evolved mainly into a digital field. But having said that, I think it's way more than just the user interface. It's so much more about getting into problem solving and really understanding what your user needs are, and we'll take a deep dive into that in some of our upcoming episodes as well, around some of the skills that you need to be a UX designer. We'll actually take a deep dive in some of the problem solving methods and things that you can go out and learn and try out, which are really good for you to have in your basket as a UX designer. So moving on swiftly to the great communication. I think apart from being able to problem solve and being able to do that collaboratively, I think communication is this, if not the first, the second biggest thing that UX designers need to focus on, or rather should have as a personal or natural trait. So if you're somebody who is a great communicator, then that is something that comes naturally to you, then you are already on a very positive tip. But having said that, the type of communication that I'm talking about here is really being able to translate the message that you get from your research and speaking with customers, etc., etc. So just think about being able to interview customers, being able to translate that to stakeholders in presentations, etc., etc. Being able to run workshops where you facilitate the conversation and really drive the conversation. Being able to keep the pulse of the project that you're working on, because usually UX design is really at the heart of any project, and it really makes you stand out as a UX designer if you can keep the pulse on the project and really keep things going, finding better ways to solve the problems that you have that come up along the way as you are developing the product, or as you are getting feedback, and sort of like iterating on the product. So communication is a very big thing in UX design. So I'm really talking about the soft type of skills here, but there are technical skills that I think UX designers need to learn as well. But I think more than from a design perspective, sort of like wireframing and actually building user interfaces, I think there are other technical skills that we'll talk about later on in the session. Cool. So great communication. We need to, as UX designers, I think people expect us to be able to give feedback to stakeholders, be able to talk to customers, do customer interviews and all of that stuff. So just great communication and being able to keep the pulse on the project and keep things moving is super important. Somebody's calling me. It's weird because I never get anybody calling me this time of the day. Anyway, let's put that baby away and move to the next point. So the next point is being analytical and really paying close attention to detail. And when I say detail, I don't necessarily mean only in on metrics and sort of like I don't mean only on user interfaces and detail, like, writing, having full stops and all those mistakes that people could potentially make or have within the user interface. But I'm really talking about paying attention to user feedback, how that is coming through, paying attention to things like the user metrics that you're receiving on any particular time that you are on a project, paying attention to where the conversation is going. So being analytical and really being able to see where the pitfalls are, being able to look into sort of like 2 steps ahead, being strategic is really one big positive thing that separates some of the very good UX designers from the best ones, right? This is some of the things that I'm telling you here are what some of the really best UX designers in the industry that I've worked with, that I've seen build really successful products do, and that is, some of the biggest skills that I've seen, skills or traits that I've seen in UX designers. So those are the main 3 things around what I would call a UX designer. A UX designer is somebody who's great at problem solving, is a great communicator, and is really analytical, pays close attention to detail, and can analyze the detail and not only read it as it is and pass it on, but actually be able to interpret as well what the data means, what the feedback means. Usually, this is one thing that usually happens. I've seen it about over 100 times in some of the user interviews that I've done. Usually users give us feedback because they think that they need to please us for some reason. Within user feedback sessions, like usability testing sessions, etc., etc. A person will be sitting on the computer. You can clearly see that they have no idea what they're doing, but they like the interface. They think it looks cool, but they're actually lost. And those are some of the things that we need to pick up on. And unfortunately, with the world that we are living in now, with COVID, there different ways of doing usability testing online, etc., etc. But coming back to to put my head together, I'm losing my train of thought there. I'm trying to say, just be analytical, be able to analyze information, and be able to really read it not as is as you see it, but rather analyze it and synthesize it to something meaningful that actually solves user problems at the end. So that is my definition of a UX designer. A UX designer is a curious problem solver, great communicator, somebody who's super analytical and be able to analyze and synthesize feedback and data, and obviously has a close attention to detail when it comes to the general user experience as well. So feel free to ask any questions in the chat as we go through this session. I'm going to get to the next section now, and I want to talk about what are you actually signing up for, right? All right, we understand now what a UX designer is, sort of like my definition at least. You can go on Google and there'll probably be different versions of this, but I think these are some of the biggest skills with some of the best people that I've worked with, in the market so far. Great problem solving skills, great communication, great when it comes to being analytical and just being able to analyze and synthesize feedback and data. So what are you signing up for actually when you're signing up to be a UX designer, right? So depending on which field you're coming from, there's usually a lot to learn. I think being a UX designer is a field where we are always learning about human behavior, about how to find out more things about user behaviors, how to really dig deep and try and be in our users situation as much as possible. So definitely depending on which part of career you're coming from and what part of UX design you want to specialize in, you definitely have a learning curve. Even if you're coming from, a design background, maybe you are a UI designer. I don't know if there are any UI designers within the people that are watching this currently. If you're watching this after the note, if you are coming from a design background, please let us know which design background you're coming from, and maybe we can talk to that in some of the upcoming episodes. But even if you're coming from a design background like myself, I come from a graphic design background, a little bit of animation, a little bit of front-end CSS, a little bit of web design basically. I come from that world, and my learning curve was really to learn how to, solve problems and communicate with stakeholders, properly. The UI interface design part, using apps like Sketch or, things like Figma, sort of like come, from that background. So, it's really about understanding what you're trying to do in UX design itself, or if you are trying to specialize in a specific thing. And talking about that, the next point that I want to talk about is that you need to understand the difference between UI and UX design. I understand on a lot of job markets right now in the market, we get to see a lot of UX UI designer roles, and user experience really goes beyond the user interface, right? It's really about some of the things that I was talking about when we started the session, about really solving user problems, about really taking a deep dive into the project and being able to not only design a user interface, but an experience around how the user is gonna find out about this product, how they're gonna use it, and what is it's actually going to solve for them, right? So understanding the difference between user interface design and user experience design is, some of the biggest thing that I always tell a lot of people that I speak with in some of the coaching calls that I do, as well as some of the designers that I meet with who want to get into user experience design. A lot of designers who are coming from, a web design background usually sort of like jump into UX design because they think it's basically one and the same thing, but it's slightly not, right? The one part is about the solving and the understanding and actually building a business solution, and the other part is about more of the aesthetics and putting things together and actually making sure that the thing looks and feels good. The one part is about making sure that the thing works, the UX, and the other part is about making sure that the thing you actually have an interface to use it, and those are the two different things. The reason why I say it's important for people who are getting into UX to understand this is that depending on what role you want to get into and the type of personality you are in, I see Rena says, I come from a motion design background, so I guess that would be a lot of technical experience that you have there, which is super cool. I think depending on what you want to get into, if you want to still do a lot of technical work, you want to build, interfaces and things like that, and you still want to do the UX component, be able to get the insights directly from the customers' ears, to your design. That is a super cool thing to do as a UX UI designer, but you really need to understand the UX part and be able to grow your skills in there, especially in problem solving, communication, and being analytical, right? And when it comes to the the UI part, it's really about the technical stuff. It's about knowing how to use Sketch or Figma, but how to make prototypes and making things look really good, for users to. I'm not saying that aesthetics are not important. Aesthetics are super important in any product design, and that is what people actually use and interact with. I see we have a question here in our chat. Christian is asking, practically what steps can I take to transition from a 13-year business analysis project management career to user experience design? I think if you have a lot of business analysis, so working as a BA, it's actually a very good position for you to get into UX designer. The steps that you need to take to get into UX design, I think it's really about focusing on problem solving skills. I think from a BA perspective, you probably have a lot of skills around communicating with stakeholders, etc., etc. I think the things that you need to focus on learning right now is really about how do we do the problem solving part, things like speaking with customers, empathizing and things like that. And if you're really looking to get into your UX design role from a BA role, I think the easiest transition is to actually, there's a lot of overlap between those two roles. I think, there are some missing parts around the user needs perspective. So the transition for you and the learning curve, I don't think it'll be that super big. I think you probably have a lot of experience around working within corporates and dealing with stakeholders and, putting business ideas together. But, that world is different from product design or UX design, because UX design is actually about, not only doing the analysis, but actually recommending, solutions and implementing the solutions with, working with developers, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the things that you need to learn how to do. However, I would suggest that while you are learning those things, you can start looking at sort of like UX design roles and what are the other skills that the roles that you potentially want to get into or apply for, need, right? And see if they're a good fit for you, and see if you want to do, again, like what I was saying about the UX and the UI, if you want to focus more on the user interface, design part, or you really want to focus on the user experience, on the, analyzing things, talking with people and really getting, feedback and looking at metric, etc., etc. So there's a huge overlap there, Christian. I see there's another question. I hope I answered your question there. I went off on a tangent a little bit. I'm also currently finishing my undergrad in physiology, so I'm learning about data and interpretation and human behavior. That's super cool. So I guess what would help, that would help in some way. I guess it would, right? Because it's the same thing that I was saying to Christian again. It's about being able to analyze data and human behavior. The thing about human behavior though is that as a UX designer, I don't come from any psychology background or anything like that, but I think we usually have a lot of assumptions, and usually, data, from my experience anyway, is usually pretty far off if you actually don't speak with the potential users that you're speaking with, which is a big thing in UX design, that we actually want to speak with the people that we're designing for, so that we have empathy about the situations and the environments that they're operating in, right? So if you're designing something for someone, it's not just about user behavior. It's about, what device are they using, their data connection. A lot of things cover, what the user needs are, other than just the human behavior part. I think the human behavior part is a big part of it that you can definitely salvage and use in a UX career. But I think there's a big part around, being really able to learn empathizing methods, like there's an empathy map method. There's different UX design methods that you can learn and apply and see if there's a cross section around that. But it would definitely help in a lot of ways for you to have skills, especially, in data and interpretation, etc., etc. Cool. So I guess we're talking about really having a lifetime of learning here. I myself, as a UX designer, I learn, new and better ways for me to, communicate better, not only with my stakeholders, but with also the users that I'm designing for, being able to learn how to, ask better questions, being able to learn how to, really interpret what they're telling me when it comes back to human behavior and, body language, etc., etc. So I'm learning on an everyday basis on how to optimize some of the skills that I already have and some of the methods that I have. So what are you signing up for? I think, as we say, depending on, which background you are coming from and which part of UX design you want to focus on, there's a lot to learn. So it's really a lifetime of learning, problem solving methods and understanding user behavior. You're really signing up for collaboration with not just other designers or the people that you're designing for, but with, executive stakeholders, the development team, sometimes the marketing team as well. I've had moments and times where I had to spend time in, call center environments to be able to pull data and, be able to speak with people and really analyze what, problems users were experiencing. So you're really signing up for, being in a space that is in a spotlight, to be honest. I think the UX design role is there's a spotlight on it currently, especially with companies hiring for UX designers. They're expecting us to be the people who solve the problems, for the developers to actually put in action. So there's a lot of development houses in South Africa. There's a lot of development places, but they're looking for UX designers to be able to bring the cutting edge difference between the products that are just being made by random people, 8 people sitting in a boardroom versus having a UX designer who actually speaks with customers and get some user feedback, etc., etc. I just want to take a quick break now and invite you guys over to our website, dobetterux.com. If you haven't checked it out already, I would like you to check it out. We've got a couple of sort of like things that we are trying to put out on a more consistent basis. We've got a blog that we're working on. We've got a podcast called Not a UX Designer. So if you want to learn on the go, I don't know where you'll be going. It's COVID though. Stay safe. Maybe you're working out or something. So if you want to check out the podcast, it's called Not a UX Designer. You can find it on the website. We're also starting this week with our weekly newsletter, which basically wraps up our week, some of the content, some of the things that we found interesting, some of the things that we are learning, and some of the new design methods and things that really interest us that will be taken out on every week, sort of like a wrap of the week. It's something that we want to be doing. So please do consider signing up for our newsletter if you don't want to miss out on any of the things that we'll be doing throughout the week. We try and do live streaming sessions every week. We try and have a new podcast every week, and we try and have a new blog post that usually accompanies the podcast as well. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, please do consider checking our website out. Other than that, we do have a UX design community over on LinkedIn. Probably some of the people watching this are coming from LinkedIn. But if you are interested in, asking questions and getting other people within the UX design community, helping us answer your questions, feel free to, join our LinkedIn group. Just search Do Better UX and you'll be able to find it. Cool. So let's get back to the last part of our session today. So we've spoken about, sort of like the skills that you need to learn and if, UX design is a good fit for you. But I wanted to talk a little bit about, career goals and aspirations, really. And this is, something that, that is, that speaks more to you than what you need to fit in. So what are you trying to do getting into UX design? What is pulling you into UX design, right? I would like to know. Please let us know in the comment section, in the chat section. Why are you getting into UX design, right? Are you looking to work in a creative, technical, and collaborative environment, which is, something that you would get in a UX design career? I think right now, more than ever, with the whole pandemic thing, there is great opportunity to work remotely, especially with international clients as well, not only local clients. If you're watching this from South Africa or from wherever you are, I think, with the whole remote work opening up, I think there is a lot more opportunity for UX designers to actually work with international clients as well. Or maybe you're looking for a decent salary and job security for, a much longer term. If you're looking for job security in the UX design field, I think there is definitely a huge demand of UX design now, and more companies are getting into UX design. But I think there's a lot of technology that is disrupting what the current UX designer is. And I am doing a talk actually over at DXZA. It's a conference that's happening on the 21st of January. If you would like to know more about that, ping me somewhere and on LinkedIn or here, and I will drop a link to the conference for you. I'll be talking about some of the technologies that are actually disrupting the UX career role going forward beyond 2021, right? Is it because you want to get into a more freelance or maybe even a specializing role, whether you want to be an expert designer in voice or UX or VR or some of the leading technologies that are out there? What are your goals and aspirations getting into UX design? I think all the things that I spoke around, having to work in a creative, technical and collaborative environment, great work opportunities globally, remotely, decent salaries and a longer term job security, freelancing and specializing things. Some of the, main things that people really get into UX design for. And I think you just need to be able to, because it's becoming an over-flooded market because of the trending and the buzzword around it. I think it's really about, how do you optimize yourself to be able to provide more value for the people that you work with and serve, which is mainly your users at the end of the day. Christian here says, for me, it's about leveraging off my BA experience to pursue a career that appeals to my creative side. I'm looking for joy. Definitely. I think you will definitely, enjoy what can I say, interacting with more people, if that is a trait that you have, and if that is something that you like doing, I think you will enjoy, the creative part of, workshopping and brainstorming and coming up with ideas and prototypes and, testing them out. And I think, coming from a BA background, you definitely have a lot of skills that UX designers need to have even today. Even some of the best UX designers that I've seen, could learn some of the best analytical things that BA people bring to the table. So I hope that this episode brought you some value. I hope that I was able to answer some of the questions that you brought through here. We will be doing, this is just part one of the 4-part series. We will be covering, different topics. The next topic that we are going to be doing next week, although I think on Thursday next week, is what are you actually expected to do as a UX designer. We'll be taking a deep dive into, the role and the responsibilities of a UX designer. So if that sounds like something that you might be interested in, consider subscribing to the channel again. That way you'll be notified when we put the episode, the live streaming, I don't know, call it an episode, or yeah, when we put up the event, you'll be notified so that you don't miss it. So yeah, I think it's gonna be a really interesting month for people who want to get into UX design. We'll be covering 3 more topics over the course of the month. So thank you so much for joining me for today's session, and looking forward to interacting with you further on the Do Better UX community, our LinkedIn group. Until next week. Ciao.